everyone, this is Simon from Raising Vibrations, and today I'm just going to do a quick tutorial on firstly a navigation around astro.com. I've had a lot of people try to figure out how to do their birth charts, or how to add certain things, or how to create the birth chart in a specific way. And so how to tutorial has or definitely helps in this case. So that's the first thing. And then I'm also going to show how to add some asteroids to the chart, as well, as this has also been something that has come my way where people are curious about this. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do when you're trying to get your birth chart and so on and so forth, you go to a website called astro.com. You type it in, www.astro.com. Okay, it will bring you to this type of website here. And from this point, you'll then either do one or two things: create an entire user account, which you'll need to do by filling in your name and so on and so forth. Otherwise, you can create a guest user. Okay, and once you've created a guest user, this screen will come up. All right, and this is what it will look like. So you type in your name first, type in the last name, or any person for that matter. You put in the gender, if it's male or female, and of course your birth date, and the hour, and the country, and the birth town. Okay, super simple. Those details are what's necessary to create a birth chart. All right. So once we've done that, we click on the continue button, and from here you'll see there is the chart over there. Okay, and again, if you look over here, you can read the basic settings for this user profile. Create a free registered profile, and you can read those things there. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to click on that. As you can see, it's highlighted. So I click on it like so, and it brings me to the screen. Okay, once I've got to the screen over here, I can do a variety of things. I can check the personal daily horoscope that is done and created by Robert Hand. This gives you information on what type of transits you might be going through, and just some brief introductions of what you might be experiencing in that day. To a certain degree, really helpful. Okay, so there's two ways to do this. From here, you want to now create your birth chart, right? So you can either scroll down, right down to the bottom, and you can see there, extended chart selection. Okay, that's one way to do it. Just scroll right down to the bottom and click on extended chart selection. Or alternatively, you can use this option over here, which is the navigation right at the top. Can you see here? Contact, all about astrology, astro shop, free horoscopes, and so on and so forth. Click on free horoscopes, and this navigation will lead you all the way to the different places that are on this website. And if you look to the far right hand side, you'll notice natal chart ascendant, extended chart selection. I would click on that, extended chart selection. Okay, so that's where you want to go. Once you've come to that point, you'll then be met with this interface. Okay, this is like your dashboard. This is where all the configurations that you want your chart to look like are going to be done and adjusted here. Okay, so of course, who's the horoscope for? In this case, test. Yeah. The second thing is, then you want to look at the methods. So please select the type of chart you want. So would you like to use a synastry chart? Synastry chart is when you take yourself and somebody else's chart and it gets superimposed on top of each other. You can choose a composite chart, and that's where you take two people again, and instead of creating a superimposed chart, it creates one chart, and that is like your individual, like your collective experience together as two people. Okay, so you can do, if you want to work out with relationships, right? You can go down further using this button here, and you can see there transits. Okay, so what you want to do here is you want to click on natal chart and transits. If by clicking on natal chart and transits, it then says, it gives you the option to have the natal chart drawn, and then you'll see on the outside of the chart, there's these green little markers, and it will show you where the planets are today in relationship to where the planets are when you were born. Okay, so that's how you figure out where your transits are. So you can do that. Then also, You can, if you're somebody that's advanced, you can look at progressed charts. You can look at just where the transits are normally. And of course, you can look at solar arcs and so on and so forth. Progressed just shows you the nature of how the planets have progressed since you have been born. It's different to transits. I'd highly recommend doing some reading on what progressed means in this case, and then applying that chart to your analysis if that's what you're seeking. Same thing with solar arcs. And then finally over here, something that I highly recommend that you should do is you should actually look at solar return charts. Okay. From my own personal experience of understanding how solar returns work, I've had some great success in understanding how the evolution of yourself exists, or how you're going to naturally experience life. A solar return chart is, and to make this obviously clear, a solar return chart is where what happens is a chart gets drawn, an astrological chart gets drawn that is not like your natal chart. It's a chart that gets drawn based on the planets on your birthday and where they would be. Okay, the sun sign still stays the same, and I'll show you what I mean by that there. So solar returns are really something that I would highly recommend putting into. Okay, so let's just, for this tutorial's sake, just go for the transits just to begin with, and we'll do the solar return as well. So I've got a natal chart, which is my, the chart we've used, and then the transits, right, where the planets are today. Now, chart drawing style, I would just leave it as web default. Okay, if you're interested in learning more about those things, I would then obviously recommend reading it up, but just stay with web style. Okay, then start date for charts marked with. So let's say, for instance, you want to look at the types of transits you were having 5 years ago. Then what you would do is you would use this option here to get that information. All right. So what we'll do is we'll first just leave that out for a second, and we'll go chart and transits. All right. House system. Here again, this is your personal preference. There's a video on my YouTube channel explaining why I use porphyry house system. Otherwise, whichever house system you prefer to use to analyze the nature of your chart, you're free to do that. In this case, porphyry house system is what I'm going to select. The zodiac, this is of course Western geocentric, tropical, and then you can use all of these others over here, which again, you can see that Astrodientest warns you regarding this, because of course, this is something that you need to have some knowledge on before you investigate what these are about. So I highly recommend reading up on these before you select them. So leave it as Western geocentric. Now again, reduced and increased orbs. Here again, if you're somebody that is working with astrology and you would like to, say for instance, the planet Mars and the planet Venus are in a close proximity to each other, if you want the charts to recognize how close they are to each other, this is what you would use. Okay, so 150% would imply that the chart will say, okay, the planets are very far away from each other, but they're still in contact. Whereas the reduced would say, yeah, I'm not really paying attention to how they're not close to each other, right? I'll explain a little bit more what I mean by that when there's actually a chart up. All right, so we've come to this point over here. We've got our house system, and we've got natal chart and transits. So the next thing that we want to go and do is come over to this point over here. And so this is where the asteroids are, okay? So Chiron is naturally by default already there. If you move your cursor over the actual asteroids, you'll notice that Astrodientest gives you information about how to add these asteroids. It says multiple selection is possible, e.g. by holding down Shift or the Control key, and then just clicking on it. So let me show you. You want to add the asteroid series, how we nurture ourselves. Asteroid Pallas Athene, how we apply our natural wisdom to situations and circumstances. Asteroid Juno, how we understand ourselves in relationships, okay? And of course, Vesta, all right? So we've got those asteroids over there, the 4 main asteroids. And of course, Chiron will naturally always be selected. Can you see that this is highlighted blue? It implies that those asteroids have been selected and will be added to your chart. And of course, you can see that there's quite a lengthy amount of asteroids here that you can add, and so on and so forth. Again, just holding the shift key and clicking on that, and it will add that to the chart. Okay, so then the next thing is just moving to the right hand side. You select this over here. Always use true node or mean node. In my personal opinion, I like to use the true node. It literally, for me, it's just shown more results that have been more accurate. However, as far as I'm concerned, I think that when you're really looking at the astrology in itself, I don't know if it matters that much in terms of the difference between mean node and true node. I would also recommend doing some research regarding what is the difference between the two. Okay, so true node, fantastic. Also show descending node. So that will imply that I would want to look at the north node of the chart, and I would want to look at the south node of the chart. Okay, then aspects at aspect lines to Chiron. In other words, if you want to see if Chiron is making a square to any planet, if Chiron is making an opposition or a conjunction, then that's what you would want to look at. I generally add that to the thing. Add aspects line to the lunar nodes and eclipses. Yes, absolutely, you would want to do that. Why? Because you want to see if there are any angles that are being made to the nodes themselves, so that you can have a deeper understanding of what is important. Now, I personally don't use the add aspect lines to all, because it makes it all confusing. But if you feel like you're comfortable doing that, then by all means add the aspects lines to all. It just means that every single angle that is in the chart will naturally come up. Okay, and then finally, major aspects only. This is one where this is actually new. It just implies saying it's only going to add aspects like lines to planets if there is a 0 degrees, as you can see, 180, 90, 120, and 60. Like, those are the most important ones there. Okay, so now that we've kind of selected that over there, you can see at the bottom over here it says additional asteroids, fixed stars, and objects. Now, for me personally, if this video was intended for a class that was learning about transits and are learning about asteroids, the asteroid Lucifer, if you would like to add that to your astrological database, is 19, as you can see there, I've already put it up, 1930. And right, so when you want to add an asteroid to the chart that is not listed over here, okay, you have to then add the number that is linked with an asteroid. Okay, and if you want to know what that number is, you go just below this bar, and you can see Astrodine Test has actually offered a file that has all of the lists of the asteroids and the numbers next to them. So you just download that, and then that will say, you just go down the list, you find Lucifer, you say, oh, okay, 1930. If you're looking for another asteroid, say for instance Argent Suri, then that comes up as 2300, and you just add it there. And can you see how I've done that? I've put in a comma between the two, and that's all you do. You just keep on adding the number of the asteroid and the comma, depending on which one you want to look at and observe. Yep. Okay, fantastic. And all you need to do is just use the internet to find out the numbers. And of course, like I said, this database, it's a 4 megabyte file with, what is that, 19,402 list of asteroids. Okay, now that we've come to this point over here, we've added all these things to the table. If you click here to show my chart, you can see now what has come up, right? The name, the time, and natal chart and transits, porphyry house system, it will tell you there, yeah? And so now you have a chart, and you can see here that it's kind of messy to a certain degree, of course, because there's many angles being put in, and we've added asteroids here as well. Now, you don't have to do that and just get the basic main 12 archetypes if you're new to this experience, but you understand what's going on. So there's the asteroids there. There's Argent Suri. There's Lucifer over there with Pallas Athene and Vesta and Ceres. There's Mars. And you can see here that Pluto is actually making a square, which is a 90-degree angle, right? 90 degrees, because from there to there is 90 degrees. And Pluto is squaring Mars. Right, so that would be defined as an orb. It's at 29 degrees and that's at 24. So an exact square or exact 90 degrees would mean that Mars would need to be 29 degrees Leo, right? In order for it to be at the same orb as Pluto, i.e. exact 90 degree. So that selection, if we go back to chart selection over here, and we looked at this thing here where it said reduce or increase orbs, it would just then give more leeway or less leeway in terms of the chart in itself. So let's say, for instance, we went back here, just quickly do this here, and we said 10%. That Pluto square probably wouldn't come up. Yeah. Can you see there? There's no square. Can you see the aspects? They're not really major at this stage. A big difference, isn't it? Okay. So you can see what that means over there if you want to adjust the way that the angles are working, etc. I think, and then, so we've got the transits, and now we can see Jupiter is transiting this person's 8th house. We can see that Uranus is currently transiting their 2nd house. We can see that Neptune is about to transit their 2nd house as well, on the cusp. Pluto is in their 12th house, transiting on their 12th house. The North Node or True Node is in their 9th house, that's that. And then, of course, the Descending Node or South Node, you can see that's there, yeah? And then, of course, from this point of view onwards, so you've got this chart, you can see that the current placement of Jupiter in the sky as it is today is there, conjunct the North Node. That's where it is, that green little line. Okay? And you can see that the natal placement of Jupiter is where? Where's the natal placement of Jupiter in this person's chart? Saturn, Uranus, there we go. So that's where the planet was when they were born, and that's where the planet is today. And you can see that there's actually a square that has actually been formed. Whoever this person is, I just made it up, but somebody must have been born on that day at that time. So they're currently going through a Jupiter square at this stage. You see that? Okay. All right. So that's the transits over there. And you can see that that's how you bring up transits. That's the astrology with all the asteroids in it as well. Okay. And then those green lines, pardon me, not green lines, but red lines and blue lines indicate aspects. It's the psychological tension that is existing with the charts. Okay, so what we want to do is now we want to go back to, we can actually click on additional data tables in PDF formats. And you can just click on that and it will give you more information that you want to know. So back to chart selection, and we're going to look at the solar return. And this will be the last thing that we'll do here. So you go, okay, solar return, or maybe I'll just do this here quickly, what a progressed chart looks like. There we go. So as you can see here, these symbols over here indicate where the symbols have moved since the birth. Okay, so progressions imply the planets and how they've moved. So there was when they were born. That's where Mars was when this person was born. That's where Mars is in terms of its progression, like how that evolution has gone. I'm not really familiar with progressions as much as I'd like to, so this is not an area that I can really share lots of knowledge on. So I would recommend doing some research on this aspect, but that's what they look like. Okay, you can see that there hasn't much movement that's occurred with Pluto. It's very slow. The Jupiter, not very fast, as you can see there. The same with Neptune and Uranus. Okay, so back to chart selection, and we go to solar return. Where is it? There, solar return. Now, there's two ways that you have to recognize solar returns. One, the solar return chart, okay, is a chart that is drawn, like I said, for the year of 2016 and 2017 from the date of, from the time, your birth date, okay, as you can see, the 12th of May. So this will be on the 12th of May, 2016. This chart will then begin to become more active. So that's what it means, solar return. It's like your birthday, and then what the chart will look like for 1 year until the next birthday. Yeah. And I highly recommend looking into this, to be honest. I actually do solar return readings and conversations with as a service on raising vibrations. So if you're interested in actually wanting to know more about that, you can get in contact with me, and I can share more with you what to do. So as you can see, the planets, so everybody knows today that Neptune is in Pisces. As you can see, Uranus is in Aries. So that's where the planets are today. But the thing that doesn't change is the sun. This person was born with the sun at 20 degrees Taurus. So this is what the chart looks like for the next year, from 2016 to 2017. It's really, really powerful and really influential. And it will be taken from a reference place of when you were born, as you can see there, right? So, and then you do this every single year, and it tracks the nature of your like immediate evolution for that year. It's incredibly powerful. So the next thing I wanted to say is that if you're somebody that has moved from your birthplace, I would recommend doing 2 solar return charts because they overlay on top of each other. Okay. In other words, in this particular instance, the thing that I missed out was the fact that we're dealing with Pluto. When you're working with a solar return chart, I would look at Pluto as a really, really influential factor in understanding what is actually occurring. So you say, okay, I want to do a solar return chart for 2016, 2017, and specifically speaking, the placement of Pluto in the birth chart will play a really influential role in how things are going to naturally evolve for you. And of course, if you want to see, like you've got Saturn in the 9th house retrograde, Mars retrograde in the 9th house Sag, that's going to be quite an interesting year for you, in the sense that your desires will in some way, shape or form feel a little bit like you won't have the gasoline behind you. So you can kind of let yourself know that for that year, this will probably be the case, and you can adjust yourself in accordance with that, right? But if you've moved, right, then what you have to do is you have to draw a chart for when you were born, and then you have to go to this place here. You have to say, modify under default settings, modify reference place. You click on that. You deselect use birthplace and you click on continue, and then you write in where you're currently living. And what will happen, and I would honestly only use this for Pluto, to be honest. Let's say, for instance, you live in New York now, right? Let's say you live in New York. New York. Okay. New York, where is that? There. So now you move to New York, right? You say everything's rechanged, so I'm just gonna have to go back here quickly. Do solar return. All those things are gonna have to come up. Use true node, descending. You have to put these back in again if you're using a guest user account. Okay, and porphyry. Right, fantastic. And now you'll notice that Pluto is actually in the 1st house instead of the 9th. So you actually have to overlay the 9th house, or the 10th house, pardon me, it was in the 10th house, and the 1st house, right? Now, of course, you would have to go and do research and reading up on these things. So I do recommend actually having a reading with an astrologer regarding solar returns if you're somebody that doesn't know how these things, or take a course in it, or, work with myself regarding that. But yeah, so that's what you have to do. So you have to take 2 charts, one where you're born, and then of course where you're living currently. And those will be the 2 ways that you'll understand what is happening for you for that year. All right. Okay, fantastic, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to share this with you. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and take care. Bye-bye.